Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Artemis, her gaze fixed on the holographic star map projected in front of her. The usual crisp, familiar lines of constellations were absent, replaced by a chaotic jumble of stars that seemed to mock her understanding of the cosmos. The map rotated slowly, its unfamiliarity gnawing at her confidence. The bridge, usually filled with the soft hum of equipment and quiet chatter, was unnervingly silent. The crew, sensing the gravity of the situation, worked in focused concentration at their stations, their faces pale and tense under the dim blue lighting. Elena clenched her jaw, trying to suppress the rising tide of unease that threatened to break through her calm exterior. She turned to Zara Patel, the ship's navigation officer, who was hunched over her console, her fingers a blur as they danced across the interface. "Can we get a fix on our location, Zara?" Elena asked, her voice steady, yet laced with a subtle edge of urgency. Zara didn't look up, her eyes glued to the data streaming across her screen. She had always been the most reliable member of the crew when it came to navigation, sharp, precise, and unflinchingly logical. But now, her confidence was visibly wavering. "Working on it, Captain," Zara replied, her voice tight with concentration. Her brow furrowed deeper with each passing second. "I'm cross-referencing our star charts with every known database, but..." "But what?" Elena pressed, stepping closer. The faint whirring of the ship's systems seemed to grow louder in the silence that followed. Zara hesitated for a moment before she finally looked up, meeting Elena's gaze. The anxiety in her eyes was unmistakable. "There's nothing, Captain. No matches at all. I've checked and rechecked. We're in completely uncharted space." Elena's heart skipped a beat as the words sank in. She turned back to the holographic map, now glowing with a cold, indifferent light. The dots of unknown stars felt like distant, unblinking eyes watching them, each one a silent witness to their growing predicament. The realization spread through the bridge like a cold wave. The crew members exchanged nervous glances, the weight of Zara's words pressing down on them. They were lost. "Keep trying," Elena ordered, though her voice had lost some of its firmness. "There has to be something, some landmark, some anomaly we can identify." Zara nodded, though she didn't seem convinced. She returned to her console, but the uncertainty in her movements was clear. The data continued to scroll across the screen, a blur of numbers and symbols, but none of it made sense. Elena stepped back, her mind racing. She had faced countless dangers in her career, pirates, hostile environments, malfunctioning systems, but this was different. The vast, empty unknown stretched out before them, a dark void with no clear way forward. She looked around at her crew, seeing the same fear reflected in their eyes. But beneath that fear was also trust in her leadership, in her ability to find a way out of even the most hopeless situations. She couldn't let them down. Taking a deep breath, she straightened her shoulders. "All right, everyone," she said, her voice cutting through the tense silence. "We may be in uncharted space, but we're not helpless. We're the Artemis, and we've got the best crew in the fleet. We'll figure this out, one step at a time." The crew visibly steadied at her words, a flicker of resolve returning to their faces. They turned back to their stations with renewed determination. The moment of panic passed, for now. But as Elena returned to her command chair, a knot of worry remained tight in her chest. The stars outside the ship's windows, once so familiar and comforting, now seemed distant and strange. They were alone in a part of the galaxy no human had ever seen before, with no way of knowing what dangers, or wonders, lay ahead. And for the first time in her career, Elena Vasquez wasn't sure if she had the answers. Days turned into weeks as the Artemis drifted through the vast, uncharted expanse of space. Each passing day felt longer than the last, with the crew's once unshakable resolve slowly giving way to exhaustion and despair. The routine of scanning, charting, and rechecking star systems became a monotonous loop, with every effort to find a recognizable landmark or route home ending in frustration. The ship's once vibrant atmosphere grew heavy with the weight of uncertainty. Conversations among the crew became sparse, and laughter, a sound that had once filled the mess hall, was now a distant memory. Crew members avoided eye contact, retreating into their own thoughts as the reality of their situation sank in. The supplies, meticulously rationed since their arrival in the unknown sector, were running dangerously low. The hydroponic gardens were working overtime, but they couldn't keep up with the demands of a full crew. Meals grew smaller, and the grim prospect of starvation loomed on the horizon. Tensions flared as the crew's nerves frayed. Minor disagreements over routine tasks escalated into heated arguments, and it took all of Captain Elena Vasquez's leadership to maintain order. She could see the fatigue etched into the faces of her crew, and she knew she had to keep them focused, keep them believing that they would find a way out. But as the weeks stretched on, even Elena found it harder to hold on to that belief. She spent long hours in her quarters, poring over star maps and ship logs, searching for anything they might have missed. But the stars outside remained stubbornly alien, and hope was slipping away. Then, one evening, as the ship drifted through a particularly barren sector of space, a sudden beep broke the silence on the bridge. Lian Chen, the communications officer, straightened in her seat, her eyes widening as she focused on her console. A faint, rhythmic signal had appeared on the long-range scanners, a series of pulses, repeating at regular intervals. Lian's fingers flew across the controls as she worked to isolate and amplify the signal. The sound filled the bridge, a low, eerie hum that seemed to vibrate through the ship's hull. "Captain, you need to see this," Lian called out, her voice trembling with a mix of excitement and apprehension. Elena, who had been in a tense discussion with Zara Patel about their dwindling fuel reserves, hurried over to Lian's station. The crew, sensing something significant, gathered around, their eyes fixed on the display. The sound was unmistakable now, a steady, pulsating rhythm that seemed to carry an almost hypnotic quality. Elena leaned over the console, her heart pounding in her chest as she listened intently. The sound was like nothing she had ever heard before, both alien and familiar, as if it were calling out to them from across the void. "What do you make of it?" Elena asked, trying to keep her voice steady, though she couldn't suppress the surge of hope that welled up inside her. Lian's fingers danced across the controls, adjusting frequencies and filtering out interference. After a moment, she looked up at Elena, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and uncertainty. "It's definitely artificial," Lian replied. "The pattern is too regular to be natural. And it's coming from a nearby star system, just a few light years away. But there's something odd about it." "Odd how?" Elena pressed, leaning closer. Lian hesitated, her brow furrowing as she analyzed the data. "It doesn't match any known communication protocols. It's almost like a distress signal, but there's a strange modulation in the frequency. It could be a distortion from whatever's causing the signal to repeat, or it could be something else entirely." The bridge fell silent as the implications of Lian's words sank in. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, each of them feeling the same mixture of hope and dread. A distress signal could mean survivors, others who were lost, just like them. But it could also mean danger, a trap set by hostile forces lurking in the dark. Elena's mind raced. The signal was the first sign of anything resembling civilization they had encountered since they'd become lost. It could be their only chance to find answers, or even a way back home. But it could also lead them deeper into unknown and perilous territory. She straightened, her decision made. "Prepare to change course," she ordered. "We're heading towards that signal. If there's a chance, any chance, that it can lead us home, we have to take it." Zara nodded, already adjusting the ship's trajectory. The engines hummed to life as the Artemis turned towards the distant star system, the signal growing slightly stronger with each passing moment. As the ship moved forward, the crew felt a flicker of hope reignite within them. For the first time in weeks, they had a direction, a purpose. But as they drew closer to the source of the signal, that hope was tempered by a growing sense of foreboding. Elena returned to her command chair, her eyes fixed on the stars ahead. Whatever awaited them in that distant star system, they would face it together, as they always had. But as the rhythmic pulse of the signal echoed through the ship, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that they were being drawn into something far greater, and far more dangerous, than they had ever imagined. The decision was made to follow the signal. With a mixture of anticipation and trepidation, Captain Elena Vasquez gave the order, and the Artemis surged forward, its engines humming with renewed purpose. The distant star system grew closer on the viewscreen, the signal's rhythmic pulse growing stronger with each passing hour. As the ship entered the system, a massive, derelict space station loomed into view, orbiting a desolate, barren planet. The station was gargantuan, easily dwarfing the Artemis, its dark metal exterior marred by centuries of neglect. Twisted spires jutted out from its structure like the limbs of some long-dead colossus, casting eerie shadows over the surface below. The station's design was unlike anything the crew had ever encountered, a bizarre fusion of organic curves and geometric precision. The metal gleamed with a dull, almost iridescent sheen, as though it were alive with some ancient energy. It was clearly of alien origin, yet there was something unsettlingly familiar about it, as if the station was echoing long-forgotten memories buried deep within the human psyche. The crew watched in silence as the Artemis slowly approached, the vast structure filling the viewscreen. The station appeared lifeless, its lights long extinguished, yet the signal continued to pulse from within, steady and unyielding. "Captain, we're in range," reported Zara Patel, her voice hushed as if not to disturb the spectral presence of the station. Elena nodded, her eyes narrowing as she studied the massive structure. "Scan for any signs of life or active defenses," she ordered. Lian Chen worked quickly at her console, her fingers dancing over the controls. After a tense moment, she shook her head. "No signs of life, Captain. No active energy signatures either, aside from the signal source." "Whatever happened here, it happened a long time ago," added Marcus Shaw, the ship's security officer, his tone grim. "But we still need to be cautious. This place gives me the creeps." Elena couldn't disagree. There was something deeply unsettling about the station, its silence, its immensity, the way it seemed to watch them as they drew near. But they had no choice. The signal might be their only chance to find a way home. "Send an away team," Elena ordered, her voice firm. "We need to find out who sent that signal and if there's any way to get back home." Lieutenant Marcus Shaw was quick to volunteer, his expression resolute. "I'll lead the team, Captain." Elena nodded, trusting in Marcus's judgment and expertise. "Take Dr. Aisha Grant with you. We'll need her expertise if you encounter anything biological or technological we can't immediately identify." Within minutes, the away team was assembled. They donned their environmental suits, each member carrying a variety of scanning equipment and weapons, just in case. As they boarded the shuttle that would take them to the station, the atmosphere was thick with tension. The shuttle ride was short, but felt like an eternity. The massive station loomed larger as they approached, its dark surface stretching out in all directions. Finally, the shuttle docked with an ancient, weathered airlock. The metal groaned in protest as the docking clamps engaged, but it held. "Airlock is secure," Marcus reported, his voice echoing through the comms. "We're going in." The airlock doors creaked open, revealing a dark, silent corridor beyond. The team stepped inside, their suit lights cutting through the oppressive darkness. The air was stale and thin, heavy with the scent of dust and decay. The corridors were wide, almost cavernous, but the architecture was disorienting, walls and floors twisted in strange, non-Euclidean angles, creating an almost dreamlike sense of vertigo. As they moved deeper into the station, the silence became almost unbearable, broken only by the distant thrum of the signal that had drawn them here. The walls were covered in strange symbols, carved deep into the metal and glowing faintly with a soft, greenish light. The symbols were unlike any language the team had ever seen, intricate and alien, yet somehow resonating with a primal part of their minds. "Dr. Grant, any ideas what these are?" Marcus asked, his voice low as he gestured to the symbols. Dr. Aisha Grant, the ship's xenobiologist, paused to examine the carvings. She ran a gloved hand over the surface, her eyes narrowing in concentration. "These symbols, they seem almost biological in nature. They remind me of the patterns found in certain microscopic organisms, but on a much larger scale. Whoever, or whatever, built this station, they were using a form of communication we've never encountered before." Marcus nodded, though he couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that the symbols were watching them, shifting subtly under their gaze. As they ventured deeper, the station's design grew even more bizarre. The walls and floors seemed to pulse with a faint energy, and the technology embedded in the structure was both advanced and ancient, sleek, seamless interfaces melded with decaying organic material. It was as if the station was alive, but in the throes of a slow, inevitable death. Finally, they reached a central chamber where the signal originated. The room was vast, its ceiling lost in shadow. In the center stood a large crystalline structure, suspended in mid-air by unseen forces. The crystal pulsed with an otherworldly light, casting eerie reflections across the walls. The signal was emanating from within the crystal, the rhythmical pulse now reverberating through the room. "What is it?" whispered Dr. Grant, her voice tinged with awe and fear. Before anyone could respond, the crystal emitted a sudden, intense burst of energy. The light was blinding, enveloping the team in a wave of searing brightness. They barely had time to react before the energy surged through their bodies, a strange, tingling sensation that sent their minds reeling. The light intensified, and the world around them seemed to warp and bend. The walls of the chamber dissolved into a swirling vortex of colors and shapes, and the team felt as if they were being pulled through the fabric of space itself. Then, as quickly as it had begun, the light vanished. The team found themselves standing in the same chamber, but everything had changed. The crystal was still there, but it no longer pulsed with light. The chamber was bathed in a soft, golden glow, and the oppressive atmosphere of the station had lifted. The corridors outside were no longer dark and decaying. Instead, they were alive with activity. Strange, humanoid figures moved through the halls, their forms shimmering with an ethereal glow. The air was filled with a low hum, a harmonious resonance that seemed to vibrate through their very souls. Marcus looked around, his heart pounding. What just happened? Where are we? Dr. Grant's voice trembled with disbelief. I think we've crossed over into another reality. Or maybe we've traveled back in time. The team stood in stunned silence, the enormity of their situation dawning on them. Whatever had just occurred, they were no longer alone in the station. The signal had been a beacon, leading them to this moment, but its true purpose, and the intentions of those who had sent it, remained terrifyingly unclear. When the blinding light finally faded, the away team found themselves standing in the same chamber, but the world around them had transformed. The once decaying and abandoned station was now vibrant, alive with energy and purpose. The oppressive silence had been replaced by the hum of advanced machinery, the soft glow of lights, and the subtle sounds of life. The corridors, which had been dark and lifeless, were now brightly lit, their walls pulsing with a warm, golden light that seemed to emanate from within the very structure of the station. The strange symbols that had once been etched into the walls were now glowing with a gentle luminescence, their meaning still unclear, but their presence now comforting rather than ominous. As the team stepped cautiously out of the chamber, they found themselves in a wide hallway bustling with activity. Strange, humanoid figures moved with purpose, their forms both alien and familiar. They were tall, with elongated limbs and sleek, graceful bodies covered in intricate, flowing garments that seemed to shimmer in the light. Their faces were eerily similar to human features, but with subtle differences, slightly larger eyes that glowed with an inner light, and skin tones that ranged from deep blue to pale silver. They look like us, Marcus Shaw murmured, his voice tinged with astonishment. He couldn't tear his eyes away from the beings moving around them. Despite their otherworldly appearance, there was something deeply familiar about them, as if they were looking at a distant reflection of themselves. Dr. Aisha Grant stepped forward, her scientific curiosity piqued. She studied the beings with a mix of awe and wonder. They must be some sort of advanced offshoot of humanity, or perhaps we share a common ancestor, she speculated. But their technology, their civilization, it's far beyond anything we've ever encountered. The away team moved cautiously through the bustling corridor, their senses on high alert. The beings around them paid little attention to the newcomers, going about their tasks with quiet efficiency. The air was filled with the murmur of voices, the language incomprehensible yet hauntingly familiar, like an ancient dialect that had been forgotten by time. As they rounded a corner, one of the beings broke away from the crowd and approached the team. It moved with an effortless grace, its eyes glowing with intelligence and recognition. The being's face was calm, serene, and its expression conveyed a sense of warmth and welcome. "Welcome," it said in perfect English, its voice resonating with a calm authority that instantly put the team at ease. "We have been waiting for you." The team exchanged bewildered glances, unsure of how to respond. Marcus took a cautious step forward, his hand instinctively resting on the hilt of his weapon, though he made no move to draw it. "Who are you? And what is this place?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. The being inclined its head slightly, a gesture that seemed to carry both respect and understanding. "You are aboard the Nexus," it replied. "This station is a remnant of our civilization, an outpost left behind to guide those who would one day find their way back to their origins." "Our origins?" Dr. Grant echoed, her mind racing. "You mean, you're the ones who sent the signal?" The being nodded, its gaze steady and compassionate. "Indeed. The signal was a beacon, designed to reach those who share our lineage, our distant descendants. We have watched over this galaxy for eons, seeding life and nurturing it where we could. But our time as active participants in the universe has long since passed. We have ascended to a different plane of existence, leaving behind only traces of our presence, and this station, to guide those who would follow." The enormity of the being's words left the team speechless. They had stumbled upon the remnants of an ancient, advanced civilization, one that had played a pivotal role in shaping the very fabric of life across the galaxy. The implications were staggering. Elena's voice cut through the silence, steady and authoritative. "If you've been waiting for us, then you must know why we're here," she said, her eyes locked onto the being's glowing gaze. "We're lost. We were pulled off course, and we've been stranded in uncharted space. Can you help us find our way back home?" The being's expression softened, and it nodded once more. "Yes, we are aware of your plight. The Nexus has the means to restore your course and send you back to the stars you know. But there is more at stake than simply returning to your home. Your journey here was not an accident, it was guided by forces beyond your comprehension. You have been chosen, as all who find their way to the Nexus are chosen, to carry with you the knowledge of what once was and what could be again." Marcus frowned, his mind grappling with the being's cryptic words. "What do you mean, chosen? Chosen for what?" The being stepped aside, gesturing for the team to follow. "Come, there is much to show you, and time is of the essence. You will soon understand the true purpose of your journey." The away team hesitated only for a moment before following the being down the corridor. As they walked, the walls around them seemed to shift and change, revealing glimpses of long-forgotten worlds, ancient civilizations, and events that had shaped the galaxy in ways they could scarcely comprehend. They passed through a series of chambers, each more awe-inspiring than the last, vast halls filled with holographic star maps, archives of knowledge encoded in crystals, and artifacts from countless worlds. The team could feel the weight of history pressing down on them, the realization that they were witnessing the remnants of a civilization that had once spanned the stars, a civilization that had guided the course of life across the galaxy. Finally, they reached a grand chamber at the heart of the station. In the center of the room stood a massive crystalline structure, similar to the one they had encountered before, but much larger and more intricate. The crystal glowed with a soft, pulsating light, and as they approached, the being turned to face them. "This is the heart of the Nexus," the being explained. "It is a repository of all our knowledge, our history, and our power. It is also the key to your return. But before you leave, you must understand that your journey here has awakened something, a force that has lain dormant for millennia. The galaxy is on the brink of a new era, and your actions will determine its course." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "What kind of force? What are we supposed to do?" The being's gaze grew distant, as if peering into the vastness of time itself. "There is a darkness that has been waiting, just as we have. It is a remnant of an ancient war, a force of destruction that once threatened to consume all life. We defeated it long ago, but it was never truly destroyed. It has been biding its time, waiting for the right moment to return. And now, with your arrival, the balance has shifted. The choice is yours. Will you stand against the coming darkness, or will you let it consume all that we have built?" The weight of the being's words settled heavily on the team. They had come seeking a way home, but now they were faced with a choice that could shape the future of the entire galaxy. The fate of countless worlds, perhaps even their own, rested in their hands. Elena looked around at her team, seeing the same mix of fear, determination, and resolve in their eyes. They had been through so much together, and now they stood on the precipice of something far greater than themselves. "We'll do whatever it takes," Elena said finally, her voice firm. "But we'll need your help." The being's eyes glowed with a renewed intensity, and it nodded. "You will have it. The Nexus will guide you. But be warned, the path ahead will not be easy. You will face trials that will test your resolve, your courage, and your very humanity. But if you succeed, you will not only save your world, you will become the guardians of a new era, the bearers of a legacy that has endured for eons." With that, the being raised its hands, and the crystalline structure in the center of the room began to pulse with a brilliant light. The team felt a surge of energy wash over them, filling them with a sense of purpose and clarity. They were no longer lost, they had been found, and their journey had just begun. As the light enveloped them once more, the team felt themselves being pulled back toward their ship, the Nexus's knowledge and power now flowing through them. They knew their mission was far from over. The darkness was coming, and they were the galaxy's last hope. As the crew of the Artemis began to explore the Nexus and learn from the Eternals, they were awestruck by the vast knowledge and technology that had been preserved within the station. The Eternals, a race of beings who had transcended physical form, shared their history with the crew, how they had once been explorers and creators, seeding life across the galaxy and guiding fledgling civilizations toward enlightenment. But not all their creations had embraced the path of peace and knowledge. Among those who had rejected the Eternals' teachings were the Urkith, a warlike species that had once been a part of the great galactic community the Eternals had nurtured. The Urkith had grown powerful and arrogant, believing themselves superior to all other races. They had waged a devastating war against the Eternals, seeking to dominate or destroy all who opposed them. The conflict had ravaged countless worlds, and although the Eternals had eventually driven the Urkith back, the cost had been immeasurable. For millennia, the Eternals had retreated from the physical realm, choosing to watch over the galaxy from the safety of the Nexus, while the Urkith had licked their wounds, biding their time and waiting for the opportunity to strike again. That opportunity had now arrived. The station's reactivation had not gone unnoticed. The Urkith, ever vigilant, had detected the surge of energy as the Nexus awakened. To them, it was a sign that their ancient enemies had returned, and they were determined to finish what they had started long ago. One day, as the crew of the Artemis continued their studies and preparations, the atmosphere in the station shifted. The usually serene and composed Eternals seemed tense, their movements quicker and more purposeful. The once calm hum of the station's systems now carried an undertone of urgency. Captain Elena Vasquez was in the midst of discussing tactical applications of the Eternals' technology with Kaler, the leader of the Eternals, when the ancient being suddenly paused, his glowing eyes narrowing in concentration. "Our enemies have found us," Kaler said, his voice echoing with a resonance that sent a chill down Elena's spine. "The Urkith have detected the Nexus's activation. They are on their way, and they will stop at nothing to annihilate us and anyone who stands in their way." Elena's heart skipped a beat. She had known the journey would be fraught with dangers, but this was more than she had anticipated. The Urkith were notorious even in the scattered histories of humanity, ruthless, relentless, and bent on destruction. The thought of facing them with her crew, still reeling from their unexpected journey, was terrifying. But there was no time for fear. "Thank you for the warning, Kaler," Elena said, her voice steady despite the knot forming in her stomach. "We'll do whatever it takes to defend the Nexus. This ship might be our only way home, but it's also our best defense." Elena immediately convened an emergency meeting with her senior officers. The mood in the briefing room was grim, the tension palpable as they discussed the impending threat. Zara Patel, Marcus Shaw, Lian Chen, Dr. Aisha Grant, and the rest of the crew gathered around the holographic display, which now showed the approaching Urkith fleet, dozens of ships, bristling with weapons, heading straight for the Nexus. "We're outnumbered and outgunned," Marcus said, his tone blunt as he examined the tactical readout. "The Artemis is a science vessel, not a warship. We don't stand a chance against that kind of firepower." "But we have something they don't," Elena countered, her mind racing as she formulated a plan. "We have the Eternals' technology. If we can integrate it into our systems, we might be able to level the playing field." Kaler, who had joined the meeting as a shimmering holographic presence, nodded in agreement. "The Nexus holds many secrets, Captain. Our technology is ancient, but it is powerful. With our guidance, your ship can be outfitted with systems that will give you a fighting chance." The crew worked tirelessly, day and night, to prepare the Artemis for the coming battle. The Eternals shared their knowledge freely, teaching the crew how to integrate their advanced technology into the ship's systems. The Artemis underwent a rapid transformation, its hull reinforced with energy shields that could withstand the Earth's powerful weapons, its engines enhanced with hyperdimensional drives that allowed for unprecedented maneuverability, and its weapons systems upgraded with energy-based armaments that could rival even the Earth's most formidable ships. Dr. Grant worked closely with the Eternals to understand the biological aspects of their technology, helping to ensure that the new systems were fully compatible with human physiology. Meanwhile, Lian Chen and Zara Patel focused on adapting the ship's communications and navigation systems, ensuring that the Artemis could coordinate its defenses with the Nexus and evade the Earth's jamming techniques. As the days passed, the Artemis became something new, no longer just a ship, but a hybrid of human ingenuity and eternal wisdom, a vessel capable of facing the galaxy's deadliest threats. Finally, the day came when the Earth fleet entered the system. The massive warships cut through space like sharks through water, their dark hulls glinting menacingly in the light of the distant stars. The Nexus loomed in the distance, a beacon of light and hope against the encroaching darkness. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Artemis, her crew around her, their faces set with determination. The Earth's ships were still far off, but the tension was thick, the air electric with the anticipation of battle. "This is it," Elena said, her voice steady and commanding. "We've done everything we can to prepare. Now it's up to us to protect this station, protect each other, and find a way home. We are the last line of defense. Let's make it count." The crew responded with a chorus of affirmations, their resolve unwavering. Marcus took his position at the weapons console, his hands hovering over the controls, ready to unleash the Artemis' newfound firepower. Zara was at the navigation station, her fingers poised to execute the evasive maneuvers they had practiced. Lian monitored communications, ensuring they were in constant contact with the Nexus, while Dr. Grant stood by, ready to assist with any unforeseen complications. As the Earth fleet closed in, the Artemis powered up, its systems humming with the energy of the Eternals. The ship's new shields flared to life, a shimmering barrier of light encasing the vessel, while its weapons arrays locked onto the approaching enemy ships. The Earth didn't waste time. The lead ship fired the first salvo, a barrage of high-energy plasma bolts streaking toward the Artemis. The ship shuddered as the bolts impacted its shields, but the barrier held, absorbing the energy and dissipating it harmlessly into space. "Shields holding at 80%, Marcus reported, his eyes glued to the readouts. "We can take a few more hits, but we'll need to hit back hard." "Fire at will, Lieutenant," Elena ordered, her voice calm but firm. The Artemis retaliated with a volley of its own, beams of concentrated energy lancing out from its newly installed weapons. The beam struck the Leaderkith ship, slicing through its shields and armor with devastating precision. The ship erupted in a burst of flame and debris, its wreckage scattering into the void. But there was no time to celebrate. The Leaderkith fleet responded with overwhelming force, launching wave after wave of attacks. The Artemis darted through the onslaught, its enhanced engines allowing it to maneuver with agility that no human ship had ever achieved. Yet, for every Leaderkith ship they destroyed, more took its place, their numbers seemingly endless. "Elena, we can't keep this up forever," Zara warned, her voice strained as she struggled to keep the ship ahead of the Leaderkith barrage. "We're outnumbered 10-1. Elena knew Zara was right. Despite the Eternals' technology, they were still a single ship against an entire fleet. The odds were overwhelming, and the Leaderkith were relentless. "We need to buy time," Elena said, thinking quickly. "Kaler, is there anything the Nexus can do to help? Any weapons or defenses we can activate?" Kaler's hologram flickered as the Eternal considered the options. The Nexus was not designed for warfare, but there are certain protocols that can be activated in extreme circumstances. However, doing so would draw immense energy from the station, potentially destabilizing its systems. "It's a risk we have to take," Elena replied. "If we don't stop them here, there won't be a Nexus left to defend." Kaler nodded, his expression grave. "Very well. I will initiate the protocols. But be warned, this will only delay the Leaderkith. The final victory must be yours." As Kaler disappeared, the Artemis continued its desperate battle. Moments later, the Nexus began to glow with an intense, pulsing light. Beams of energy shot out from the station, forming a protective barrier around it and the Artemis. The Urkith ships slammed into the barrier, their weapons deflected by the immense power of the Nexus. But the strain on the station was evident. The pulsing light grew erratic, and the structure of the Nexus itself began to shudder. Elena knew they had little time left. "Marcus, target the command ship," Elena ordered, her voice filled with determination. "We take out their leader, and the rest might fall back." Marcus nodded, focusing all the Artemis' remaining power on a single, devastating shot. The ship's main cannon charged, its energy reading spiking to dangerous levels. Firing in 3, 2, 1. The beam of energy that erupted from the Artemis was blinding, a concentrated burst of power that cut through space like a knife. It struck the Urkith command ship squarely, piercing its shields and core in a single, catastrophic blow. The ship exploded in a massive fireball, the shockwave rippling through the Urkith fleet. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the remaining Urkith ships began to retreat, their formation breaking as they scattered into the void. The Artemis had won, but at a great cost. The Nexus's energy reserves were nearly depleted, and the station itself was on the verge of collapse. "Kaler, we need to get out of here," Elena called out as the Artemis sped back toward the Nexus. "Can you stabilize the station?" Kaler reappeared, his form flickering. "The Nexus is beyond repair, Captain. It has fulfilled its purpose. But you and your crew must survive. Return to your ship, and we will open a portal to your home." Elena hesitated, torn between the desire to save the station and the need to protect her crew. But Kaler's gaze was firm, and she knew there was no other choice. "Understood," she said, her voice heavy with regret. "Thank you, Kaler. For everything." The Artemis docked with the Nexus one final time, the crew quickly boarding the ship as the station systems began to fail. Once everyone was aboard, the Artemis pulled away, its engines straining as it prepared for the jump home. As the Nexus's power waned, a rift opened in space, a shimmering portal that led back to known space, to home. The Artemis entered the portal, its battered hull disappearing into the light. Behind them, the Nexus shuddered one final time before collapsing in on itself, its ancient power dissipating into the void. The Eternals had sacrificed their last stronghold, but in doing so, they had ensured that the knowledge of their civilization would live on in the crew of the Artemis. As the ship emerged from the portal into the familiar expanse of their own galaxy, the crew breathed a collective sigh of relief. They were battered, bruised, and exhausted, but they had survived. And though they had lost the Nexus, they had gained something far more valuable: the knowledge, strength, and unity to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge, looking out at the stars. They were home, but their journey was far from over. The Urkith were still out there, and the galaxy was still in danger. But now, they were ready. "Set a course for Earth," Elena ordered, her voice filled with renewed determination. "We've got a lot of work to do." And with that, the Artemis turned toward home, ready to face whatever the future might bring. The battle raged across the void, the blackness of space lit up by the fierce exchange of energy blasts, plasma bolts, and shimmering shields. The Artemis moved with a grace and power it had never possessed before, its systems enhanced by the advanced technology of the Eternals. The once vulnerable science vessel was now a formidable force, weaving through the Urkith fleet with a deadly precision that caught even the battle-hardened enemies by surprise. The Eternals, though fewer in number, were a force to be reckoned with. Their ethereal forms moved through the Nexus, channeling energy into the station's defensive systems. Beams of pure energy lashed out from the station, striking Urkith ships with surgical accuracy. Each blast from the Nexus was like the strike of a giant, shattering shields and tearing through hulls with ease. But the Urkith were not easily defeated. Their ships were massive and heavily armored, bristling with weapons designed for annihilation. They fought with a brutal efficiency, their tactics honed over centuries of warfare. Wave after wave of Urkith vessels surged forward, their cannons firing relentlessly at the Nexus and the Artemis. On the bridge of the Artemis, Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the armrests of her command chair, her eyes locked on the holographic display that showed the unfolding battle. The ship shook violently as another volley of plasma bolts struck the shields, but Elena remained calm, her mind focused on the task at hand. Status report. She called out over the din of battle. Shields holding at 60%, Marcus Shaw reported from the weapons console, his hands moving rapidly as he adjusted the targeting systems. We're taking heavy fire, but the new shields are absorbing most of the damage. Weapons are fully operational. Engineering is stable, but we're pushing the reactors to their limits, added Zara Patel, her voice tense as she monitored the ship's power levels. We can't keep this up forever. Elena nodded, her mind racing as she considered their options. The Urketh were relentless, their ships pressing the attack with overwhelming force. They needed to change the tide of the battle, and fast. Focus fire on their command ship, Elena ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. If we take out their leader, the rest of their fleet might lose cohesion. It's our best shot. Marcus nodded, his expression grim as he locked onto the Urketh command ship. It was a behemoth, larger than any other vessel in the fleet, bristling with weaponry and protected by a powerful energy shield. But the Artemis had faced impossible odds before, and Elena had faith in her crew. Firing sequence initiated, Marcus announced, his voice tight with concentration. All weapons systems targeting the command ship. The Artemis unleashed a barrage of energy blasts, each one guided by the advanced targeting algorithms provided by the Eternals. The beams of energy sliced through the darkness of space, converging on the command ship's shields. For a moment, the ship's defenses held, the energy blasts dissipating harmlessly against the barrier. But the Artemis weapons, powered by the Nexus's energy, were unlike anything the Urketh had ever faced. The shield began to buckle under the sustained assault, cracks forming in the energy field as the Artemis poured all its power into the attack. On the bridge, Elena watched intently as the holographic display showed the command ship's defenses failing, the shield flickering and weakening with each passing second. Shields at 30%, Marcus reported, his voice rising with urgency. We're getting through. Keep firing. Elena commanded, her eyes locked on the target. Don't let up. The Artemis weapons blazed with renewed intensity, the energy beams now cutting through the command ship's armor. Explosions erupted across the surface of the massive vessel, sending debris spiraling into space. The command ship shuddered under the onslaught, its structure beginning to crumble. Concentrate all firepower on the central reactor. Elena ordered. One more hit should do it. Marcus adjusted the targeting systems, aligning the ship's weapons for a final, devastating strike. The Artemis main cannon charged, the energy readings spiking as it prepared to deliver the killing blow. Firing in 3, 2, 1. The main cannon fired, a beam of pure energy lancing out from the Artemis and striking the command ship's reactor with pinpoint accuracy. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The command ship's reactor went critical, a massive explosion tearing through the vessel from within. The ship's hull buckled and imploded, a blinding flash of light signaling its destruction. On the bridge of the Artemis, the crew watched in stunned silence as the Urketh command ship disintegrated before their eyes. The massive explosion sent shockwaves rippling through space, knocking smaller Urketh ships off course and disrupting their formations. For a moment, it seemed as though the entire battle had paused, the void of space eerily quiet after the deafening destruction of the command ship. Then, slowly at first, the remaining Urketh vessels began to retreat, their once coordinated assault now a chaotic withdrawal. They're falling back, Lian Chen reported from the communication station, her voice tinged with both relief and exhaustion. We did it, Captain. The Urketh are retreating. Elena allowed herself a brief moment of relief, her grip on the armrests loosening as she exhaled. But there was no time to celebrate. The battle had been won, but the cost had been high. Stand down from battle stations, but stay alert, Elena ordered, her voice steady as she took stock of the situation. We need to assess the damage and make sure the Urketh don't regroup. As the crew moved to carry out her orders, Elena turned her attention to the Nexus. The ancient station had sustained significant damage during the battle, its energy reserves nearly depleted from maintaining the defensive barrier. Kaler's holographic form appeared on the bridge, his expression weary but resolute. You fought bravely, Captain, Kaler said, his voice filled with both pride and sorrow. The Urketh have been driven back, but the Nexus is gravely damaged. It will not survive another attack. Elena nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. We did what we had to do, Kaler. The Nexus may be lost, but your legacy will live on through us. Kaler smiled faintly, his eyes glowing with a soft, ethereal light. Indeed it will. The knowledge you have gained here is the key to a brighter future for your people. But now, you must return to your home and continue the fight. Elena stood, her gaze fixed on the stars beyond the bridge. The battle was over, but the war was far from won. The Urketh would return, and the galaxy would need to be ready. Set a course for Earth, she ordered, her voice filled with determination. We have a lot of work to do. As the Artemis turned away from the Nexus, leaving the ancient station to its fate, Elena couldn't help but feel a sense of both loss and hope. They had survived the impossible, but the true challenge lay ahead. With Urketh retreating and the Nexus fading into the darkness of space, the Artemis embarked on its journey home, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them in the unknown reaches of the galaxy. With the immediate threat of the Urketh temporarily averted, the aftermath of the battle brought a somber stillness to the crew of the Artemis. The void that had been filled with the chaos of combat now hung silent, the wreckage of destroyed ships drifting aimlessly through space. The once invincible Nexus now bore the scars of the battle, its ancient walls fractured and dimmed. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge, her eyes scanning the reports coming in from across the ship. The Artemis had taken heavy damage, shields were depleted, hull integrity was compromised, and several systems were running on emergency power. Yet, despite the toll, the crew remained resolute, their spirits bolstered by their hard-won victory. We've got major structural damage on decks 5 through 7, and engineering is requesting more hands to stabilize the reactor, Zara Patel reported, her voice laced with fatigue but steady. But we'll hold together, Captain. We're not out of this fight yet. Elena nodded, her gaze shifting to the holographic projection of Kaler, the leader of the Eternals. The ancient being's form flickered with a soft, otherworldly light, his expression one of both weariness and gratitude. The Nexus has suffered greatly, Kaler said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. But thanks to your bravery, we have survived this day. The Urketh have been driven back, but they will return. They always do. The crew of the Artemis exchanged glances, the gravity of the situation settling in. The Urketh were relentless, and their temporary retreat was just that, temporary. The threat they posed was far from over. Kaler's glowing eyes met Elena's, and there was a moment of shared understanding between them. Captain Vasquez, you and your crew have proven yourselves to be true allies. The bond we have forged today is one of blood and fire, and it will not be easily broken. In light of this, we offer you a choice. The crew listened intently as Kaler continued. You may choose to stay here, with us, and help rebuild what has been lost. The Nexus, though damaged, is still a repository of knowledge and power beyond imagining. Together, we could unlock its full potential and prepare for the inevitable return of the Urketh. Kaler's words hung in the air, the offer both tempting and daunting. The Nexus was a marvel of ancient technology, a gateway to untold secrets of the universe. To stay would mean delving deeper into those mysteries, becoming part of something far greater than themselves. But, Kaler added, his tone softening, we understand that your hearts may yearn for home. You have fought valiantly, and you have earned the right to return to your world. Should you choose to leave, we will open the portal once more, and you may return to your galaxy with the knowledge and technology you have gained here. The choice is yours. Silence fell over the bridge as the crew absorbed Kaler's offer. The weight of the decision was palpable, each person grappling with their own thoughts and desires. Elena turned to her officers, seeking their input. What do you think? She asked, her voice calm but carrying the urgency of the moment. Lieutenant Marcus Shaw, ever the pragmatist, was the first to speak. Staying here would mean committing to a fight that could last a lifetime. The Urketh won't stop coming, and while the technology we've gained is incredible, we're still a long way from being able to fully understand or use it. Dr. Aisha Grant, the ship's xenobiologist, nodded in agreement. There's so much we could learn here, but we're also needed back home. The knowledge we've gained could make a difference in our own galaxy, help us protect Earth and our allies from threats we don't even know about yet. Zara Patel, The navigator looked torn. "I've spent my life mapping the stars, dreaming of exploring the unknown. Staying here is tempting, but Earth is our home. It's where we belong." Elena listened to each of them, weighing their words carefully. The decision was hers to make, but she knew it would affect every member of her crew. Finally, she turned back to Kaylor, her mind made up. "We're grateful for everything you've given us, Kaylor," she began, her voice steady and resolute. "But our place is back in our own galaxy. We'll return home, and we'll take the knowledge we've gained here to prepare for whatever comes next." Kaylor nodded, his expression understanding. "I expected as much. Your courage and wisdom will serve you well in the days to come. The knowledge you carry is a great gift, but also a great responsibility. Use it wisely, Captain." With a wave of his hand, Kaylor initiated the sequence to open the portal. The Nexus's remaining power surged, creating a shimmering rift in space, a gateway that would lead the Artemis back to known space. "Thank you, Kaylor," Elena said, her voice filled with both gratitude and determination. "We won't forget what you've done for us. And if the Rikith ever come to our galaxy, we'll be ready." As the portal stabilized, Elena gave the order to set course for the rift. The crew moved with a sense of purpose, their resolve hardened by the trials they had faced. The Artemis began its approach, the portal growing larger as they neared. Just before entering, Elena took one last look at the Nexus, the ancient station that had become a symbol of both hope and sacrifice. With a final nod to Kaylor, Elena gave the command. "Take us home." The Artemis passed through the portal, the rift enveloping the ship in a cascade of light. For a brief moment, everything was pure energy, a sensation of being everywhere and nowhere all at once. Then, with a sudden lurch, the ship emerged on the other side. Familiar stars greeted them, the constellations of their own galaxy spread out before them. They were home, but the weight of what they carried with them was heavy. The journey ahead would be filled with challenges, but they were ready to face them. As the Artemis set a course for Earth, Captain Elena Vasquez allowed herself a moment of reflection. The battle was over, but the war was just beginning. The knowledge they had gained would be their greatest weapon, and with it, they would stand against any threat that came their way. The crew, united by their shared experiences, stood ready to face the unknown. The Artemis sailed through the stars, its mission far from over, but its purpose clear. They were the guardians of a new age, and their journey had only just begun. The decision to return to Earth was unanimous, yet it was not made lightly. The crew of the Artemis had been forever changed by their experiences on the Nexus, their perspectives broadened by the knowledge and wisdom of the Eternals. They had seen the vastness of the universe in ways few humans ever had, touched the legacy of a civilization that had spanned millennia, and stood at the threshold of an interstellar conflict that could shape the future of countless worlds. As the Artemis navigated the rift, the familiar constellations of their home galaxy slowly came into view. The stars that once seemed so distant now felt like old friends, their light guiding the ship back to the place where their journey had begun. But though they were returning to familiar territory, the crew knew that nothing would ever be the same. They were no longer just a team of explorers, they were the bearers of a new era, charged with the responsibility of safeguarding the legacy of the Eternals and defending their home against the threats that loomed on the cosmic horizon. Captain Elena Vasquez stood at the observation deck, the vast expanse of space stretching out before her. The stars twinkled like jewels, each one a potential world filled with mystery and wonder. For the first time since they had been lost, she felt a deep sense of connection to the universe, a realization that they were part of something far greater than themselves. "We're not just returning home," Elena thought, her gaze fixed on the stars. "We're returning with purpose." The crew's time with the Eternals had taught them that they were part of a grander tapestry of life, a network of civilizations that span the galaxy, connected by shared history and a common destiny. They had learned that humanity was not alone in the cosmos, and that they had a role to play in the ongoing saga of the stars. Lieutenant Marcus Shaw approached Elena, his expression thoughtful. "You think they'll believe us when we tell them what we've seen?" he asked, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. Elena chuckled softly. "If they don't, we'll just have to show them," she replied. "We've got the technology and the data to prove it. And besides, We've got the Artemis, a ship that's been through the impossible and come out stronger. Dr. Aisha Grant joined them, her eyes filled with a mix of excitement and reverence. The knowledge we've gained. It's more than just science. It's a bridge to the future. We have the potential to reshape everything we know about life, the universe, and our place in it. Zara Patel, the ship's navigator, nodded in agreement. We've always looked to the stars for answers, but now we know that the answers are out there, waiting for us. We're part of something so much bigger than we ever imagined. As the Artemis continued its journey through familiar space, the crew reflected on the enormity of what they had experienced. They had faced insurmountable odds, encountered beings of incredible power and wisdom, and forged alliances that would ripple through the annals of history. They had seen the darkness of space, but also the light of hope that could emerge even in the most dire of circumstances. And now, as they neared Earth, they felt a renewed sense of purpose. The Artemis was no longer just a vessel for exploration. It was a symbol of humanity's place in the cosmos, a testament to their resilience, curiosity, and unyielding spirit. They were returning not just as survivors, but as pioneers of a new age of discovery and defense. Captain Vasquez looked out at the planet that was coming into view on the ship's main screen. Earth, blue and green, vibrant and alive. It was the place they called home, but now, it was also the first bastion of an interstellar alliance that could shape the future of the galaxy. "We're not lost anymore," Elena said softly, more to herself than to anyone else. "We're exactly where we need to be." The crew nodded, understanding the weight of her words. They had found their way back, not just to their home, but to a sense of purpose that transcended their individual lives. They were explorers, yes, but they were also defenders, guardians of the knowledge and legacy they had inherited from the Eternals. As the Artemis approached Earth, the crew prepared for their return. They knew that their story was far from over, that the challenges they had faced were just the beginning. The Urketh were still out there, and the galaxy was filled with dangers and wonders they had yet to encounter. But they were ready to face whatever came next with the courage and wisdom they had gained. The ship descended into Earth's atmosphere, the familiar sight of oceans and continents filling the viewports. The crew felt a mixture of relief and anticipation, knowing that their return would mark the beginning of a new chapter, not just for them, but for all of humanity. As the Artemis touched down on the landing pad, Captain Vasquez took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. But it was a weight she was ready to bear. She had seen the stars, and now she knew what was at stake. And so, the Artemis crew disembarked, their hearts and minds forever changed by their journey. They carried with them the hope and promise of a new era of exploration, knowing that they were part of a grander tapestry of life, one that stretched across the galaxy and beyond. As they stepped onto solid ground, Elena looked up at the sky, a sense of profound wonder and purpose filling her. They were no longer just a Starship crew, they were the defenders of the legacy of the stars, ready to face whatever challenges the universe might bring. And so, the Artemis continued its journey, not just as explorers of the unknown, but as guardians of a future that was only just beginning.